The hall was silent except for the soft hum of alien lights above. The young human man, Daniel, sat stiffly in his chair, surrounded by faces that were not like his own. Alien eyes glowed in the dim chamber, sharp ears twitched, and soft whispers moved like ripples through water. He had never felt so out of place, yet he was here because of one person. His only true alien friend, Kalen. Kalen was gone. His death was sudden. His life had ended during a border conflict far from this world. Now, all that remained was this gathering. A ceremony of honor, and the reading of his final will. Daniel's hands were clenched tight. He had not only lost a friend, he had lost the only one who ever treated him as an equal among aliens. An elder of Kalen's people stood at the front. Her voice was low but strong. She began to read. Every word was formal, every phrase heavy with ancient tradition. Daniel expected Kalen's fortune. His lands, his wealth, his treasures, to be passed to his clan, to blood relatives. That was their way. But then, the hall grew still. The elder's words carried a weight that struck Daniel like thunder. By his final will, she said, Kalen leaves his fortune to the human named Daniel. Gasps filled the chamber. Dozens of alien eyes turned on him. Some with shock, some with anger. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had never expected this. He wanted to stand, to say there was a mistake. But the elder's voice did not stop. And more. He leaves in Daniel's care his wife, Lyra. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. His head snapped toward the woman sitting at the front. She was unlike anyone else in the room. Her skin shimmered like sapphire under the lights. Her hair, silver and soft, fell like flowing rivers of light. Jewelry sparkled against her graceful form. Her eyes, deep and glowing, turned toward him slowly. She was Kalen's wife, the most beautiful alien woman Daniel had ever seen. And now, by Kalen's will, she was bound to him. The hall erupted. Angry voices shouted, "A human cannot inherit. This is against tradition. She belongs to the clan." The elder raised her hand for silence. But the whispers never stopped. Daniel sat frozen. His mind spun. He had come here to mourn his friend, not to claim his fortune, and certainly not to take responsibility for his widow. Lyra rose from her seat. She walked with slow grace toward Daniel. Every eye followed her. She stopped before him, her face calm, unreadable, but her eyes sharp as blades. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, in a voice that was soft but carried through the chamber, she spoke, "If this is Kalen's will, then I accept." The hall fell quiet. Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came. He wanted to protest, to say this was madness, but Lyra's eyes held him in place. They were not the eyes of a weak widow. They were eyes that had seen much, eyes that carried strength and secrets. The elder continued, ignoring the restless crowd. She spoke of the fortune, the lands, the trade routes, the power that now belonged to Daniel. The words barely reached him. His mind burned with confusion. Why would Kalen do this? Why trust a human with everything? And why give him Lyra? When the ceremony ended, Daniel stumbled out of the hall into the cold night air. Stars burned above, sharp and endless. His thoughts refused to settle. Behind him, footsteps. He turned to see Lyra. She stood in the starlight, her beauty unreal. Her voice was quiet but firm. "You carry a heavy gift, human," she said. "It will not be easy." Daniel swallowed hard. He wanted to ask her what she thought of this, what she truly wanted. But the words stayed trapped. He felt like a stranger in his own skin. She stepped closer. Her silver hair shimmered in the light. "Kalen trusted you more than his own blood," she whispered. "Now you must prove he was not wrong." Her words struck deep. Daniel's chest tightened. He thought of Kalen, of their friendship, of the laughter they once shared, the trust they had built. And now he had not chosen this path, but it was laid before him. The fortune, the enemies, the whispers of betrayal, and the woman standing before him. Lyra turned and walked back toward the hall, leaving him standing alone under the stars. Daniel felt the weight of his friends will settle on his shoulders. He knew one thing with certainty. His life would never be the same again. And somewhere deep in the shadows of the alien city, unseen eyes watched him, waiting. The night after the will was read, Daniel could not sleep. His thoughts circled like restless storms. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Kalen's face, then Lyra's eyes, bright and piercing, staring at him as though searching his soul. He sat near the window of the guest chamber the aliens had given him. Outside, the city glowed with strange lights, towers of crystal rising high into the sky. Ships passed silently above, leaving trails of blue fire. This was not Earth, and he felt the weight of being a stranger here, even more now that he carried Kalen's fortune and, somehow, Kalen's widow. When the door slid open, Daniel turned quickly. Lyra stepped inside. Her silver hair flowed over her shoulders like rivers of light. Her gown shimmered with patterns that seemed alive. For a moment, Daniel could not breathe. She was breathtaking, yet also dangerous, for she was not his, not really. "You do not rest?" she said softly. Her voice was calm but heavy, like someone carrying many memories. Daniel tried to answer, but his words tangled. I don't understand any of this. Why would Kalen do this to me?" Lyra stepped closer. Her eyes never left him. Those eyes were deep, glowing like jewels. They held sadness, but also strength. "Kalen was wise," she whispered. "He saw beyond blood, beyond tradition. He trusted you." Daniel shook his head. "But you, why would he give you to me? You're not a thing to be passed like treasure." His voice cracked with confusion. Her lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "You speak like a human," she said. "In our law, a widow is bound to the one chosen by her husband's will. It is tradition. It is not about what I want." She looked away for a moment, then back. But Kalen, he did not follow tradition without reason. Silence hung between them. Daniel felt her gaze pulling at him, questioning him, testing him. Her eyes held no fear, only sharp curiosity, like she wanted to see what kind of man he truly was. Finally, she asked, "Do you feel burdened? Do you regret this inheritance?" Daniel froze, the words cut deep. He thought of the wealth, the enemies, the whispers of betrayal in the hall, and of her, standing in front of him, more beautiful than anyone he had ever seen. He wanted to say yes, to confess that he was not ready for this. But when he met her eyes, he felt something different. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice low. "But I will not dishonor Kalen. I will not run." For the first time, Lyra's expression softened. Her glowing eyes flickered with something unreadable. Relief, maybe, or respect. She sat down across from him, her gown catching the light like liquid silver. "You are bold for a human," she said. "But boldness will not protect you here. The clans will come for you. They believe the fortune should return to them. They believe I should be theirs to claim. You are already marked." Daniel felt a chill run through him. He remembered the stares in the hall, the anger, the whispers. He was alone among them, and yet Lyra was here, warning him. "Then why are you not angry?" he asked. "Why do you accept this?" Lyra's eyes grew distant. "Because Kalen's choice was his last gift. He gave me to someone who does not treat me as property. Perhaps he wanted me to be free." Her words struck Daniel's heart. He saw the pain in her eyes, the years of being bound by duty, by tradition. She was beautiful, yes, but she was also trapped. And now, somehow, Kalen had placed her fate in Daniel's hands. Suddenly, a noise echoed outside the chamber. Both of them turned sharply. The sound of footsteps, then silence. Daniel stood quickly, moving toward the door, but Lyra raised a hand, stopping him. "Not yet," she whispered. "They watch us already. Do not let them see fear." Her calm voice sent a strange fire through him. She was not just a widow in mourning. She was a warrior in her own way, someone who had learned to survive in a world filled with predators. Daniel sat back slowly. His mind burned with questions. Who were they? How much danger was already circling him? And why did Lyra speak to him as though he was already part of her fate? The night stretched on, but Daniel never forgot the weight of her eyes. They were not eyes of submission. They were the eyes of someone who tested him, judged him, and perhaps hoped for something. When dawn came and the alien sun spilled golden fire across the city, Daniel stood by the window. Lyra still sat across from him, silent but watchful. Their eyes met again, And in that gaze, unspoken words passed between them. She was no longer just Kalen's widow. She was a mystery, a danger, and perhaps the greatest challenge of his life. And Daniel knew, deep inside, that whatever path lay ahead, her eyes would haunt him, guide him, and maybe, one day, change him. The city did not rest. Even when the twin suns dipped behind the crystal towers, the streets remained alive with strange lights and whispers. Daniel walked with Lyra beside him, every step heavy with the new weight he carried. He was now the heir to Kalen's fortune, but already he felt it was not a gift. It was a curse. The alien market stretched wide, filled with glowing fruits, humming devices, and creatures Daniel could not name. Yet everywhere he went, eyes followed him, some curious, some hateful. The whispers had spread fast. The human owns Kalen's wealth. The human owns Kalen's widow. Daniel clenched his fists. He hated the way they looked at Lyra, as if she were part of the treasure, a prize to be taken. She walked calmly, her silver hair shimmering in the market lights, but he could feel the tension in her steps. She was used to stares, but this was different. Suddenly, a voice hissed from the shadows. "You will not hold it long, human." Daniel turned. A tall alien with sharp ridges on his head and glowing red eyes stepped forward. Behind him stood 3 others. Their clothes bore the mark of one of Kalen's rival clans. "You think Kalen trusted you?" The alien sneered. "He betrayed his people by giving our fortune to a human dog." Daniel's chest tightened. His heart raced. He wanted to fight back. But before he could speak, Lyra stepped in front of him. Her eyes burned with cold fire. "Stand down," she said sharply. "By the law of will, his claim is true. Touch him and you break our traditions." The aliens growled, but did not strike. Their eyes lingered on Daniel with venom, then shifted to Lyra with hunger. "Tradition will not protect you for long." One of them spat, then they melted back into the crowd, leaving only the echo of their threats. Daniel exhaled shakily. "This is madness. They want me dead." Lyra's eyes remained fixed on the shadows. "They do not only want you, they want me." She turned to him slowly, her gaze sharp. "Kalen's fortune was powerful, but I was the true treasure to many. By his will, I am yours, and that makes you a target." Daniel's chest burned with anger. "You're not a possession," he said. "You're not something they can just claim." Lyra's lips curved slightly, a bitter smile. "And yet, to them, I am. That is the curse of wealth and beauty in this world. It draws vultures." Her words lingered in Daniel's mind long after they returned to Kalen's former estate. The home was vast, filled with alien art, glowing walls, and treasures beyond counting. But to Daniel, it felt empty, cold, like a trap disguised as luxury. That night, as he walked the halls, he found himself in Kalen's study. The walls were lined with maps of trade routes across the stars. Notes written in alien script glowed softly. Kalen had been powerful, respected, feared. Now all of it sat in Daniel's hands, and already enemies were sharpening their knives. A small sound behind him made Daniel turn. Lyra stood in the doorway, her eyes reflecting the pale light. "You feel it too," she said, her voice quiet. "The curse of fortune." Daniel nodded slowly. "Kalen trusted me, but I don't know why. I'm no leader. I'm not strong like him." Lyra stepped closer, her silver hair glinting like threads of light. "You are human. That is why." Daniel frowned. "What does that mean?" Her gaze locked onto his, deep and unyielding. "Humans fight differently. You do not follow the same chains as we do. Kalen believed that when the storm came, you would not bend like the rest. He believed you would stand." Daniel felt her words strike deep. He remembered Kalen's laughter, his trust, his endless courage. Maybe this was why. Maybe Kalen had seen something in him that he could not yet see in himself. But before he could answer, the estate lights flickered. A strange humming filled the halls. Then silence. Lyra's expression hardened. She moved swiftly to the window, pulling the curtains aside. In the shadows outside, Daniel saw them. Figures watching from the dark, their eyes glowing faintly. "They've come sooner than I thought," Lyra whispered. "The curse has begun." Daniel's blood turned cold. The fortune had painted a target on his back. And Lyra's too. It was no gift, it was bait. And now the hunters were closing in. The estate was silent after the watchers in the night disappeared. But silence did not bring peace. It only made Daniel more aware of the weight pressing on his shoulders. He could not sleep. He paced the wide alien halls, his mind trapped between fear and confusion. Every shadow looked dangerous, every sound a warning. Lyra walked past him, her silver hair catching the dim light. She seemed calm, almost too calm. Daniel stopped her, frustration bubbling inside him. "Why don't you seem afraid?" he asked, his voice sharper than he meant. "They're out there watching, waiting, and you act like this is normal." She turned her glowing eyes on him, unblinking. "Because it is normal?" she said softly. "This is the life I have always lived." Kalen was powerful, and with power comes enemies. "You think this curse is new, human? It has been here long before you." Daniel clenched his fists. Her calmness only made his anger worse. "Then why give it to me? Why drag me into this?" Her expression hardened. "Do you think I asked for this?" she snapped. "Do you think I wanted to wake one day and be told I belong to a human stranger?" The words struck him like a blade. He froze, guilt twisting inside him. He had been so caught up in his fear that he had forgotten. She was trapped too. She had not chosen this life any more than he had. They stood in tense silence, her eyes burning into him. For the first time since Kalen's death, Lyra's mask of calm broke. Her voice shook. "I lost my husband, my protector, my world. And now I must live with you. A man I do not know. While enemies circle like wolves, do not ask me why I do not fear. Fear is all I have ever known." Daniel's anger melted, replaced with something heavier. He had seen her as strong, untouchable, but now he saw the cracks beneath her beauty. The pain she carried. He wanted to speak, to comfort her, but his words felt small. Before he could answer, a loud crash echoed from the courtyard. Both of them turned sharply. Daniel rushed to the window. In the dark, he saw movement. Figures climbing the outer walls. "They're here," Lyra whispered, her eyes wide. Daniel's pulse raced. He grabbed the small plasma blade Kalen once gave him, his hands trembling. He had trained with it before, but never in real combat. Now it was all that stood between life and death. The attackers broke through the gates, shadows rushing across the courtyard. Lyra pulled Daniel back from the window, her voice sharp. "Stay close to me. Don't try to be a hero." But Daniel shook his head, determination hardening his face. "I won't let them take you." For a moment, her eyes widened, surprise flickered across her face. Then something softer, but there was no time to speak. The doors of the estate shook as the attackers tried to break through. The two of them moved quickly. Lyra led him through hidden corridors, her knowledge of the house guiding them. The walls hummed with old energy as she activated seals Kalen once placed. But the attackers were fast. The sound of claws scraping against metal echoed closer. In one passage, they stopped, both breathing hard. Lyra turned to him, her face close, her eyes glowing in the dim light. "Why do you risk yourself?" she whispered. "You owe me nothing." Daniel met her gaze, his voice steady. "Kalen trusted me, and I won't let his trust die. Not with you." Her lips parted as if to speak, but before she could, the wall behind them shook violently. Dust rained down. They had no choice but to run again. Finally, they reached a hidden chamber. Lyra sealed the door with a touch of her hand. The hum of energy filled the room. For now, they were safe. The two of them leaned against the wall, breathless. In the silence that followed, Daniel's eyes met hers again. Tension hung heavy, but it was no longer just anger. It was something deeper, a pull neither could deny. Yet neither spoke. Lyra looked away first, her voice low. "You are reckless, human." But maybe Kalen saw something in that recklessness. Daniel gave a weak smile. Or maybe he was just crazy. For the first time, a small laugh escaped her lips, brief but real. It was the first sound of warmth between them since this began. But outside, the attackers had not left. Their voices echoed faintly, promising blood, promising revenge. Daniel realized the truth. This tension between them was more than just anger. It was the spark of something dangerous, something that could either break them apart or bind them closer than fate itself. And as the night stretched on, one thing became clear. The fortune was not the only curse he had inherited. The bond between him and Lyra was becoming just as powerful, and just as dangerous. The hidden chamber shook as if the whole estate was breathing with fear. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the sound of fists and claws hammered at the sealed door. Daniel gripped the plasma blade tighter, sweat running down his palms. His chest rose and fell fast. But his eyes were steady now. Fear burned inside him. But something stronger held it down, determination. Lyra stood close, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dim blue lights of the chamber. Her hand rested on the wall panel, keeping the seal strong. Her voice was calm, but her glowing eyes betrayed her worry. They will break through. This door was made to hold thieves, not assassins. Daniel swallowed hard. Then we fight. She turned to him quickly, her eyes narrowing. You cannot fight them all. They are trained. They want me alive, you dead. Then they'll have to work for it, Daniel said, surprising even himself with the steel in his voice. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Lyra studied him as though seeing him for the first time. Her lips parted slightly, but she said nothing. The pounding on the door grew louder, the metal beginning to crack. Then, with a deafening screech, the seal broke. The door blasted open, and shadows flooded in. 5 attackers rushed inside, their eyes glowing red, their weapons sharp and humming with energy. Daniel stepped forward without thinking, raising the plasma blade. The first alien lunged. Daniel swung wildly, the blade cutting through the air. Sparks exploded as steel met steel. The impact sent shockwaves through his arms, but he held firm. Lyra moved like water beside him. Her gown shimmered as she spun, her hands glowing with alien energy. She unleashed a wave of force that slammed one attacker into the wall. He crumpled, unmoving. But more came. Their snarls filled the chamber. Daniel ducked as a blade slashed past his face. He countered, his blade sinking into the attacker's side. Heat and smoke hissed from the wound. The alien screamed, then fell. Adrenaline surged through Daniel's body. Every strike was survival, every movement pure instinct. He was no trained warrior, but desperation gave him strength. Beside him, Lyra fought with grace and fury. Her eyes blazed like stars, her energy crackling through the chamber. "Behind you!" she shouted. Daniel spun just in time. A blade sliced across his arm, pain burning like fire. He cried out but held his weapon tighter. His blood dripped, but his resolve grew sharper. With a roar, he drove his blade upward, catching the attacker off guard. The alien fell. The last 2 circled, their movements sharp, calculating. They focused not on Daniel, but on Lyra, their eyes hungry. Rage filled Daniel's chest. He stepped in front of her, blocking their path. His voice shook but carried weight. "You'll have to kill me first." The aliens sneered, their blades ready. But then Lyra's hand touched Daniel's shoulder. Her voice, soft but fierce. "Not alone." Together, they struck. Daniel swung hard, blocking one attacker while Lyra unleashed a burst of light that blinded the other. Daniel drove his blade forward, his cry echoing through the chamber. The alien fell. Lyra finished the last one with a blast of searing energy. The room shook as the body collapsed, silence returning at last. Daniel stood frozen, his chest heaving, blood dripping from his arm. The plasma blade trembled in his grip. He looked at the bodies around him. The smell of smoke and burnt air filled his lungs. He had fought, he had killed, and he was still standing. Slowly, he lowered the blade. His knees threatened to give out, but Lyra's hand caught him, steadying him. She looked into his eyes, her face close. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "You fought like a warrior." Daniel tried to smile through the pain. Or maybe like a fool. For the first time, her lips curved, a faint smile. But it was gone as quickly as it came. Her eyes grew serious again. "This was only the beginning," she said. "They will come again stronger. They will not stop until they take what they believe is theirs." Daniel nodded weakly. "Then we'll stop them again." She studied him for a long moment, her gaze softer now. There was no mocking, no distance, only quiet respect. perhaps even trust. As she wrapped his wound with strips of fabric torn from her gown, Daniel felt something stir inside him. This was no longer just about Kalen's will, no longer about a fortune. It was about survival, about standing beside Lyra against everything that hunted them. The night outside was silent again, but Daniel knew it was a silence filled with waiting enemies. The first attack was over, but the war for Kalen's legacy had only begun, and as Lyra tied the final knot on his bandaged arm, she whispered words that sent fire through his chest. "You are not Kalen, but maybe you are enough." The estate was quiet after the attack, too quiet. The bodies of the assassins had been removed by Kalen's loyal servants, and the floors cleaned. But Daniel still smelled smoke in the air, still saw blood on his hands. He sat in Kalen's old study, the plasma blade resting on the table before him. His arm throbbed under the bandage. His chest was heavy, not from pain but from questions. Why had Kalen left this curse to him? Why had he trusted him with so much? The door slid open. Lyra entered silently. Her silver hair flowed like liquid light around her shoulders. Her eyes glowed in the dim chamber. She moved with her usual grace, but tonight there was something different in her face. Something heavy, as if she had made a choice. "You should rest," she said softly. "Your wound still bleeds." Daniel shook his head. "I don't care about the wound. I want answers, Lyra. Why me? Why did Kalen do this?" His voice cracked. "I wasn't his blood. I wasn't his clan. I was just his friend." For a long moment she did not speak. She came closer, her steps slow. She stood by the table, her eyes fixed on the glowing maps Kalen once studied. Then she whispered, "You were more than his friend. You were his last hope." Daniel frowned. "Hope for what?" Lyra turned to him, her gaze deep and sharp. Kalen knew his death was near. He had enemies, too many to count. He knew they would come for me, for the fortune, for everything he built. He could not trust his own blood. They were hungry for power. He could not trust the clans. They hated him for rising above them. So he looked beyond them, to someone who had no chains, no ambition for power, someone who saw him as more than his wealth. Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it. "He chose you, Daniel, because you are human. You are free of our poisons. You are not bound by the greed of our people." Daniel's chest tightened. He thought of Kalen's laughter, his loyalty, the nights they shared stories. Kalen had once told him, "Humans fight with fire in their hearts, not with the hunger of power." At the time, Daniel had laughed, but now those words burned. "But why give me you?" Daniel asked quietly. His eyes met hers, and his voice lowered. "Why his wife?" Lyra froze, her glowing eyes flickered with emotion. Sadness, anger, something deeper. She turned away, her hair falling like a curtain between them. "Because I asked him to," she whispered. Daniel's breath caught. "You what?" She faced him again, her eyes shining, not with beauty but with truth. "I begged him before the war. I told him if he fell, I did not want to be given to the clans, to be passed like a prize to those who never cared for me. I wanted freedom, even if it meant being bound to an outsider." Her voice shook as she stepped closer. "He said there was only one he could trust, one who would never treat me as a trophy. He said your name." Daniel's heart pounded. He had thought Kalen's will was strange, cruel even, but now it felt like a promise, a last gift to both of them. Silence stretched between them, heavy with meaning. Lyra's eyes locked onto his, glowing brighter in the dim room. "You think this inheritance is a curse?" she said softly. "But for me, it is the only chance I was ever given to live, not as property, but as myself." Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to speak, but his voice failed. He saw her not as the shimmering widow left in his care, but as someone who had lived caged her whole life, someone Kalen had trusted him to protect. Finally, he whispered, "Then I swear, I won't let them take you, not the fortune, not you." Her lips parted, her breath caught. For a moment, her mask of strength slipped. She looked almost fragile, almost human. Her hand lifted as if to touch him. But then, a sudden sound shattered the moment. A low rumble shook the walls. The estate lights flickered, outside. The roar of engines filled the night sky. Daniel and Lyra rushed to the window. Ships descended through the dark clouds, marked with the sigils of rival clans. "They're moving faster than I thought," Lyra whispered, her face pale. "They don't want to wait for whispers in the shadows. They've come with armies." Daniel gripped the plasma blade. His heart pounded. "Then we fight." Lyra looked at him, her glowing eyes fierce. "This is no small fight. This is war." The fortune was no longer a symbol of wealth. It was a beacon that had drawn predators from across the stars. And now, Daniel realized, Kalen's last gift was not only trust, not only Lyra. It was a battle that would decide whether they lived free or died hunted. As the ships landed outside, shaking the ground, Daniel and Lyra stood side by side. For the first time, not as strangers bound by will, but as two souls tied by choice. And in her eyes, Daniel saw it. Not fear, not doubt, but belief in him. The ground shook as the rival clan's ships landed outside the estate. Dust fell from the crystal towers, and the air vibrated with the low roar of engines. Daniel stood at the balcony, plasma blade in hand. His heart pounded like a drum, fear coiled in his stomach, but alongside it burned something stronger, resolve. Beside him, Lyra stood tall, her silver hair glowing in the light of the alien moons. Her eyes blazed with fire, no longer calm, no longer cold. She was ready, not just to survive, but to fight. "This is it," Daniel whispered. "Yes," Lyra said softly. The storm Kalen saw coming. From the shadows of the estate, Kalen's few loyal guards gathered. Their armor was dented, their weapons old, but their eyes were fierce. They bowed slightly to Daniel. "We stand with you, human," their leader said, his voice heavy with respect. Daniel felt the weight of their trust. He was no warrior, no leader. But now, they looked at him as if he were both. He gripped the blade tighter. "Then we fight, not for fortune, not for power, but for freedom." The courtyard erupted with light as the attackers swarmed in. Dozens of armored soldiers poured from the ships, their weapons glowing red, the night filled with their war cries. The loyal guards rushed forward. Clashing with the invaders, sparks flew. The clash of steel and energy filled the air. Daniel and Lyra moved together, side by side. The first wave came fast, an alien lunged, but Daniel met him with the plasma blade. The clash jolted his arms, but he held, he struck, his blade slicing through. The enemy fell, another came, but Lyra unleashed a wave of energy, slamming him against the wall. They fought like fire and storm. Daniel's strikes wild but fierce, Lyra's attacks graceful and precise. Again and again, they pushed back the tide, but the enemy was endless. For every one that fell, two more stepped from the ships. Daniel's chest burned, his arm ached, sweat poured down his face. His breath came in gasps, but when he glanced at Lyra, her eyes blazed, and strength surged through him. He could not fall. Not while she stood, not while Kalen's trust lived in him. A massive figure stepped from the largest ship. His armor was black as night. His weapon a giant blade that hummed with deadly energy. The rival clan leader. His voice thundered across the courtyard. "Human, you are nothing. Give up the widow and the fortune, and I will spare your life." Daniel's blood boiled. He stepped forward, raising his blade, his voice hoarse but strong. "She is not a prize. She is not yours. If you want her, you'll go through me." A hush fell, even in the chaos. The clan leader laughed, deep and cruel. "Then you die first." He charged. His blade crashed against Daniel's. The force nearly shattered his arms. Daniel staggered back, sparks raining. The leader pressed hard, his strength overwhelming. Daniel gritted his teeth. His body screamed in pain, but he refused to fall. He thought of Kalen, of their laughter, of the trust placed in him. He thought of Lyra, her eyes, her voice, her hidden strength. A cry tore from his throat as he pushed back. His blade met the leader's, sparks exploding. The fight raged, each strike shaking the ground. Then, Lyra moved. Her hands glowed with blinding energy. She raised them high, her voice echoing like thunder. "Enough!" A wave of searing light burst from her, striking the clan soldiers. throwing them to the ground. Even the leader staggered, his armor scorched. Daniel seized the moment with a roar. He drove his blade forward, striking the leader's chest. The weapon pierced through. The massive alien's eyes widened. His roar turned into silence. Then he fell. The courtyard stilled. The remaining soldiers froze, leaderless. Their eyes darted. Then one by one, they fled, retreating back into the ships. The engines roared, and the vessels lifted, vanishing into the night sky. Silence returned. Only the sound of crackling fires and Daniel's ragged breaths filled the air. His blade slipped from his hand. He dropped to his knees, exhausted. His body shook, but he was alive. Lyra rushed to him. Her hands touched his shoulders, her glowing eyes wide. "You fought like no human I have ever seen," she whispered. Her voice trembled, not with fear but with something warmer. "You stood when no one else would." Daniel looked up at her, his chest heaving. His lips curved into a faint smile. "I didn't stand alone." For a moment, the world was still. Her hand touched his cheek, soft against the dirt and blood. Their eyes locked, and in that silence, something unspoken passed between them. Something deeper than duty, stronger than tradition. The fortune was no longer a curse. It was a gift, not of wealth, not of power, but of destiny. Kaelin had not only left Daniel riches or responsibility. He had left him Lyra, and in her eyes, Daniel saw trust, respect, and perhaps the beginning of love. As dawn broke over the alien city, the estate still scarred by battle, Daniel and Lyra stood together. The war was not over, but the first victory was theirs, and from inheritance had come something greater. Destiny.